Wild horses symbolize everything that makes our country great: freedom, survival, the untamed spirit of the American West. And they are protected on our public lands by an act of Congress. But these cherished animals are under attack. Each year, the Bureau of Land Management, a federal agency, uses helicopters to brutally round up and remove thousands of wild horses and burros from their homes on the range. The roundups kill and injure many, and rob the survivors of the two things they value most: family and freedom. The BLM has rounded up so many wild horses and burros that nearly 50,000 are stockpiled in government holding facilities. Currently, Congress prohibits the BLM from selling these captured horses and burros for slaughter, but special interests are pressing to overturn that ban. Wild horses and burros in the wild aren't safe either. The BLM wants to surgically sterilize thousands of them. These innocent animals will be subjected to dangerous and painful surgical procedures that threaten their lives. For those who do survive, sterilization will destroy the very essence of what makes them wild. It's time to take a stand. America can't be great if these symbols of American freedom are destroyed. Don't let your tax dollars be used to fund the mass roundup, sterilization, and slaughter of America's iconic Mustangs and burros. Get involved with us today.
Now, you can go to the American Wild Horse Campaign site. Trump plans means 100,000 U.S. horses could face slaughter. Advocacy groups in the U.S. say up to 100,000 Mustangs could face slaughter as the Trump administration slashes rural budgets. The Bureau of Land Management, BLM, funding has been reduced from $162.7 million for 2018, causing it to axe $10 million from its wild horse and burro management program. The program, which was introduced in 1971, safeguards an estimated 70,000 horses in the West, as well as approximately 50,000 who have been removed from the wild and are available for adoption. While roundups and birth control drugs are used to try to curb the population, the BLM said the cost of caring for this number of horses has become unsustainable. BLM figures suggest that the appropriate management level for horses in the wild should be closer to 26,000. Over the past 8 years, the program's budget has more than doubled, rising from $36.2 million in 2008 to $80.4 million in 2017, the BLM document stated. Despite these increases, the program remains far from achieving a key statutory obligation under the Wild Free Roaming Horse and Burro Act of 1971, maintaining animal populations on the range at appropriate management levels. Well, I'd like to explain here what appropriate management levels means. The BLM sets a appropriate management level, meaning that there can only be so many horses on so many acres. So they've got these skewed numbers for horses, stating that 1 horse per 100 acres. Well, if none of us were here, that number wouldn't count, because nature appropriates its own numbers. And the proof of that is in Africa before we started killing all the animals there, the abundance of animals, the surplus of animals that couldn't survive, starved to death. But there was always that level, according to population growth, of what food was available. Now, BLM is saying that the horses cannot manage themselves, but that's absolutely untrue, because before white man came, there was about estimated 2 million horses, and they managed themselves just fine. Same with the buffalo. So really, it's about the cattle industry influencing the BLM and the members of Congress with these numbers. And it's up to us, the public, to say, we understand your pressures and we don't go for it. So therefore, what we're going to do is, as consumers, we're not going to consume meat anymore, so there won't be that need for BLM and the ranchers to go on our public lands and eradicate all of our wild animals, so that the beef and the livestock industry can have its lion's share, which it already does. And so this is the real problem. Horses are ecologists, and they do not destroy the environment. And I've been pressing you with that point all along. So having said that, I'm asking you to contact your Congress members, ask them to co-sponsor the SAFE Act to stop horse slaughter in the United States. That's number one. I thank Congressman Panetta for joining on that and co-sponsoring that and being an advocate for our wild horses and burros. And your Congress member needs your support, because remember, all these ranchers are going to them and saying, we've got to have this land or we can't survive. And that's just not true. They get tax incentives. They get all kinds of things. So our wild horses need to be returned, as I've repeated over and over again. And one of the ways to do that, the biggest way, is to send a big message to the meat industry that you are only going to buy from ranchers on private lands. Thank you for watching. And now let's go back to the talk on why it's so important to become a vegan and how it all ties in karmically with our wild animals.
Believe ourselves to be compassionate, good people who would never harm an innocent creature. I mean, we're animal lovers, after all. Well, that's a whole area unto itself. If there's one thing that unites humanity across all colors, races, creeds, religions, cultures, whatever, is that we love certain animals and we eat other animals. If you live in the West, you love dogs and cats, and you eat cows, pigs, and chickens. If you're Hindu in India, you love the cows, but you abstain from all flesh, but you eat dairy. If you're in one culture, you eat dogs and dolphins, and in another culture, you shun the flesh of pigs. But favoring one group of animals over another is as universal as it is arbitrary. When we take a step back from our cultural ideals about eating animals, there is nothing worse about eating a dog than eating a cow, or a dolphin than a chicken. It's just based on our conditioning. I mean, what makes one okay to eat and the other was abhorrent? And is it because dogs are meant to be pets and cows are raised to be eaten? But, I mean, you have to tell me, like, how does being raised for food make it okay to be killed? If I raised my dog for food, or God forbid I raised a child with the intention of killing it for food, how does my intention make that death any more excusable? And how is it any less horrific for the individual who's dying? So, I mean, we're talking about taking a life here, and there's a perception that animals sacrifice their lives for us. The circle of life, they die so that we may live. But all you have to do is look into the eyes of an animal that's awaiting slaughter, and you see the terror and the panic. You watch them fight to the very last second of their lives to know that they are not willing participants in this. No matter how it's done, killing an animal is killing a being who very much wants to live, just as you and I do, our dogs and our cats do. Killing is never humane, it's never gentle, it's never kind, not even when it's labeled cage-free, free-range, or humane. Free-range chickens can be crammed in sheds one on top of another with a little screen door so that they can see outside but not actually go outside, and that legally that is free-range. These labels only bring comfort to consumers, not to the animals. So, I mean, just put yourself in their place and tell me, like, how would I have to treat you to make it okay for me to kill you? I mean, it's absurd when we look at it in that way. So the insanity of all of this is that we don't need to kill animals. We're better off letting them live for our health, for the planet, for the hungry, and certainly for the animals themselves. And don't worry, they're not going to overrun us if we don't eat them, because we won't be breeding them anymore. You know, the food industry, like any industry, runs on supply and demand. Stop demanding, they're going to stop supplying. The consumers have the power here. All that we have to do is take it. So I'd like to touch on dairy and eggs and some of the less discussed aspects of veganism. A lot of people will say, oh, I'm just going to go vegetarian. And usually this is with the best of intentions. Many people don't know that dairy and eggs are far crueler than meat is. I think most of us grew up with the idea that cows just make milk constantly, so milking them isn't bad and possibly even beneficial to them. In reality, cows' bodies in this manner work very much like our bodies. They produce milk after they've given birth. They carry their babies for 9 months, just like we do. They lactate, just like we do, and then they stop, just like we do. So to get a cow's milk, she has to be repeatedly inseminated, which is a nice word for raped. The device used to secure the cow is literally referred to within the dairy industry as a rape rack, so this is not a term that's been dreamed up by activists. Once a cow gives birth, her baby is taken away from her, and if he's male, he's sent to the veal industry. Now, I dare say that most non-vegans are even against veal. The calves are tied down, they're unable to move, and then they're slaughtered when they're only weeks old. But veal would not exist without dairy. Every cup of yogurt, every scoop of ice cream, it's tied to the death of these baby calves. And the mother cows experience a horrific agony all of their own. Now, cows bond intensely with their calves, and they will cry for days when they are taken. A former cattle rancher friend of mine, she turned vegan when she witnessed her cows chasing the trailer as it took their children away. She says they cried for days, and they only stopped when they lost their voices. This is not anthropomorphizing. This is a mother's grief, and it's utterly heartbreaking to watch. So after being forced into pregnancy after pregnancy, having their children violently taken, getting infections from frequent milkings, the mothers of the dairy industry finally give out when they're about 4 or 5 years old, and they're termed spent. Allowed to live free of this exploitation, cows can live up to 20 years or more. But their bodies give out decades before their time, and the dairy cows are then slaughtered for cheap meats and pet foods. Now, on a lighter note with all of this, you kind of have to think about the absurdity of drinking milk from a cow. So, I mean, like, who decided this was the animal to suckle from amongst every other animal? You know, I imagine some guy in a field who's eyeing, like, a cow, a wild dog, maybe a moose, and then he says, that's the one, you know? No other animal is weaned from their mother and then says, now I'm old enough to go suck on the boob of another animal. Like, cow's milk makes no sense for us. It's nutritionally designed to grow a baby cow into a 1,000-pound plus adult rather quickly, too. But our nutritional needs are completely different, and rather than help us grow big and strong, milk and dairy cause serious damage to our systems. Now, as a bonus, the infections that cows get from the frequent milkings transfer to their milk. So there's actually a legally allowable amount of pus in milk, which they call the somatic cell count. There's also antibiotics and feces in there, so it's basically pus, poop, and drugs, which kind of makes you rethink, like, rocking the milk mustache a little bit. So now we're gonna touch on eggs really quick. Eggs are one of the hardest for people to grasp ethically, I believe. We don't have to impregnate the chickens; they're just gonna, spit these out anyways, right? And in a sense, yes, they do. But layer hens suffer. They're crammed into these battery cages on top of one another. They're driven to cannibalism, literally pecking each other to death. And as I said earlier, the cage-free farms really aren't any better. The farmers manipulate the light and the temperature of the coops to trick the chickens into these unnatural biological rhythms so that they're going to produce far more eggs than is natural, and all the while depleting their bodies of nutrients so that they also are going to be dying prematurely, called spent, once again, by the industry. But the darkest part of egg production is what happens to the chicks. You see, we've segmented our animals, and we've genetically manipulated them to such an extent that we only have 2 kinds of chickens. We have layers and we have broilers. The broilers are the ones we eat, the layers are the ones that give us the eggs. And the broilers, as an aside, are made to grow so insanely fast that they're slaughtered at about 42, 43 days old. So the full-grown looking chicken carcasses you can buy are actually babies. But back to the layer chicks. So in order to have this consistent supply of eggs, we have to have more layer hens, especially because their life expectancy is so low. But we only need the females. The males have no place in the egg industry because they're not broilers, so we can't eat them. And it's a regular practice, and by regular I mean on an international scale, to throw them into a grinder alive. So they're also sometimes smothered alive by being dumped into trash cans. By some estimates, billions to trillions of newborn chicks are disposed this way every year. And I say estimates because we don't even care enough to keep track of this. So how can we, good people, animal lovers, pay people to grind up baby chicks when they're fully conscious? How is that something that we can start our days with? What kind of person does that, or what kind of person pays for that while refusing to take any responsibility? Now on to a less horrifying but slightly more disgusting side of the egg issue. The eggs are basically a chicken's period when you think about it. Chickens only have one hole called a cloaca, and from that hole they poop, they pee, they secrete fluids, and they pop out eggs. And I don't know about you, but I prefer my food not to come out of a glorified anal-vaginal combo. Thank you very much. Now, and just to kind of touch, like I said, on some of the more fringe areas of veganism, I do have videos on my channel and website addressing wool, honey, silk, and fish. and you can look into those for more information. But I would like to start wrapping up so I can take any questions that you guys have. But first I wanted to play a short video. I was going to show a graphic video when I first was planning this talk, but I've decided instead to show one that is not graphic. I do, however, want to say that I think watching graphic footage meeting the reality of our food industry is absolutely vital for those who choose to continue consuming animal products for a number of reasons. First, most people will not believe it until they see it. Number two, if we choose to eat animals and their byproducts, like, we should know what it is that we're supporting. And number three, these animals deserve to have their stories told, because these are stories that we as a society go through great pains to hide from ourselves. And if you don't believe some of the things I've mentioned today, or you want to see them for yourself, again, please do contact me through my website or email, and I can send you footage. If you do eat animal products but can't handle watching the footage of these products being made, I would just ask you to meditate on the question: if it's not good enough for your eyes, why is it good enough for your stomach? That said, this video is not graphic, but I feel that it effectively captures the horrors of the animal products industry and conveys in 2 minutes more than I have in this entire talk.
Look at him trying to escape. Now that's a shock, see? Shock stick. Very painful. He's murdered. Poor, poor being. So disgusting. So disgusting. Shame on you, America, for your Burger Kings and your McDonald's and your burger habit.
We cannot watch that and see that the animals that we kill for our food don't know any better, or that they die peacefully and humanely. They can sense the fear, they can smell the blood, and they fight. You know, they fight to the end. In my years of being vegan and speaking with many, many non-vegans, I have yet to hear one reason that even comes close to justifying putting a sentient being through what we just watched. Not one. You know, we don't need to eat animals. We benefit in every conceivable way from not eating them. The good news is, being vegan doesn't mean that you have to give up taste or even give up your favorite foods. You know, these days there exist vegan alternatives for every meat, every cheese, dairy, creation, even eggs. And you can find recipes for making your own, even if you don't have the ready-made alternatives in your area, or maybe they're too expensive. And I'm not here to say anything against eating a whole foods, fresh, organic produce diet, which will do wonders for your health. But the truth is, the animals don't care what we eat as long as it's not them. And the planet doesn't care as long as it's not being destroyed. So yes, you could be a junk food vegan. Is it the best thing for your body? Probably not. But veganism has many options and rooms for a multitude of dietary approaches that are all equally ethical. Veganism is the most powerful tool that we have for saving our planet, for ending world hunger, for improving our health when we eat health consciously, and for regaining our compassion, for becoming the people that we believe ourselves to be. Good. Good people don't rape, torture, or murder. Yet good people everywhere are doing all of these things with every single bite. But we have the power to stop all of this, and that is the beauty of veganism. It happens on an individual basis. You are the change. Thank you.
So that should give us some very good insight as to, because of your meat habit, the ranchers' influence on our Congress members and President Trump, it's all coming back to every single animal species on this planet, and of course ourselves as well. So let's go on to our next segment. Thanks for watching. Now, as I said, the BLM is proposing in their policy to shoot horses tied in trailers or tied to a post, and the gunmen will shoot them with great accuracy, so they say. But there's no such thing as great accuracy because horses move their heads too fast. And this is a point I have to bring home to you over and over again. There will be no humane way of slaughtering these horses, not with what BLM is proposing. So it's so important that you get active. We're going to watch the head movement. This particular video that was taken in Canada where they slaughtered the horses, this horse was shot 11 times. Now, I'm not going to show you the gruesome details in this particular segment. In my later shows, yes, I will, but not this one. But you can see how this horse is waiting, terrified. He can smell the blood, and now he's coming up, and we're not going to show that. But he comes up and he shoots the horse, and then the horse falls down, and then he has to come back and shoot him again, and he ends up shooting him 11 times. Even though he had this stun gun, which is equivalent to a .22, which is what they use to kill the horses. So you see how inhumane it all is. And yet Trump is saying that they're going to humanely euthanize our wild horses and burros. And that's what they're kind of doing to us. They're humanely euthanizing us, but they really aren't. You know, Trump's health plan is so very humane. The elderly will be paying the lion's share of the premiums to support the rich. This man is so, in my opinion, so evil because he doesn't care about the American people. He has no heart and soul for the American people. He pretends to, but then he doesn't care about those that don't make money, that don't have the capacity to make money. Not everyone can have the capacity to make money. We all have different talents in this world. You know, we're not all made to be money makers. And so he has no compassion for anyone unless they're rich. And I recently emailed him asking for a statement for the acidification of oceans. You know, how is he going to stop the CO2 from being collected in the oceans that is changing the pH of our oceans so that our phytoplankton, which creates 70% of the Earth's oxygen, can produce little skeletal shells so they can produce oxygen. And Kelly Love, his press secretary, she emails me back and says, oh, contact the EPA. Scott Pruitt? I mean, come on, this is the guy who sued EPA. So he's got all his henchmen in there. This man is the most dangerous man to ever lead a country. And he's killing all of us. He's killing your children. He's killing our future. He's killing the oceans. He's killing everything, all for business. And we're just going to sit and munch our little burgers and allow it? I mean, if you don't warrior up, folks, if you don't start lifting a finger and doing something on some level, spiritually, karmically, we're all done. This is the 12th hour. And this man can change, but only if millions of you call, if millions of you give up meat, if millions of you care. That's the only thing that's going to ever work. So this is what you're going to do, folks. You're going to call President Trump, and you're going to tell him that you do not want your tax dollars going to kill our horses. You would rather have that money that's going to cost millions to kill these horses in a way that's even halfway decently humane, and they're not going to do it. They don't want to spend that kind of money. If you think Trump wants to spend money on your health care, do you think he's going to want to spend money killing horses humanely? I mean, the only humane way to really kill those horses is if they used a tranquilizer gun. And even then, it's not a sure thing, because the men on death row that have been injected with that so-called sodium pentothal or whatever it is that they use, they declare that there's burning and that it's excruciating. Well, I have been given sodium pentothal when I was in operation, and I just went out. But there are claims that you don't. So who knows? These horses need to be returned. And then the second thing you're going to do is you're going to contact your Congress member. There's the switchboard number. Ask them to co-sponsor the SAFE Act that to stop horse slaughter. And then you're going to contact private ranchers if you can't give up meat. And there's an example of one right there. And buy from them. And you're going to contact the United States Cattlemen's Association. Just look it up on Google. And you're going to tell them that you're no longer going to be buying any meat that's on public lands because you want to save your wildlife. And this is going to send shivers down their spine, because they are not saving our planet. They're not interested in that. They're just interested in money. The private ranchers are the ones that are interested in trying to save the ecology. And so that's who we need to support. We did it with the organic industry, and we need to do it with the meat industry. And the best way, of course, is not eating meat at all. But if you have to, then please go that way. Thank you for watching this segment of Meet America.